All right, welcome back to JV Speaks episode 4, where we're going to talk about the challenges and enjoyments of running two companies.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how many in the audience are aware of the two branches of JV Studios, or I guess JV Studios sister company, Belladonna Studios. But look forward to kind of going into that and talking about some of these challenges. So, just to kick us off, Vince, can you just talk about the two companies and what they both do and how it came to be?
Yes. So we have two different businesses within the same kind of video photo industry, but we have JV Studios, which y'all should know, and JV does a lot of the commercial business to business, working with agencies, more marketing route. Where Belladonna is strictly wedding photography and videography. Yeah. So back in the day, JV Studios did it all. And to the point where our clients didn't know what JV Studios did. Was it music videos? Was it commercials? Was it weddings? Was it event recaps? So we hit a moment where we're like, we didn't want to turn away the inquiries, but we also didn't want JV to get kind of backed into like being seen as a wedding company. So we created a sister company, and that was like our two branch company system at that point.
Right. Nice. So you guys have these two companies, and I know we talked about Vince. You're doing the creative. I'm sure that's overwhelming to do two creative for two companies, but John, you're kind of the business guy running two separate businesses. Can you talk about some of the challenges you had and frustrations that you encountered during that time?
Sure. Yeah. Where do I begin? There's a lot. So yeah, back in the day, it was just me and Vince doing all this. So the analogy I like to, pull out here is they were both two plants, but we only had enough water in one kettle, right? And so there was times where, and again, it goes back to the reactiveness of like, we have a bunch of leads come in through Bella, and of course, I need to give that energy, give that attention. So I'm watering it. But then in the meantime, JV's over here getting some leads, and I'm watering it, but then all of a sudden you kind of run out of water, right? And then, that's when you get overexerted, you get overly stressed, and then at some point there's going to be one of these companies is not going to have as much attention, So for me, that was the majority of my career up until like 2 years ago, when I kind of decided, all right, I think it's time to start bringing people in. But also during COVID, something that really helped me was I automated everything for Bella. So I was able to get on a CRM, and this helped me because I had pretty much a free employee that was just a yearly cost. Mm-hmm. I set everything up. I remember we went through a lot of that. Like, it was confusing, right? The automations, but I pretty much had it. So whenever anyone would reach out, they would get an automatic reply. 2 days later, they would get sent this. Then they would get sent this. And then pretty much the only time I communicated with people was setting up a call and then sending the contract. And then after that, the team, and I would pass it off to Vince. And I feel like it worked for, we were extremely busy for 2020 was a little rough, but 2021, 2022, even 2023. But, I felt a little disconnected, of course, And then so on the JV end, that's where you couldn't automate JV. Mm-hmm. JV is very unique. So
I think there's two different, with JV, it's like, for me as a person, when you get that automation email for a company, you're buying stuff, you're like, who's running this company? So I think in the beginning, it took a lot of work off your shoulders to automate Bella. But then I think it started hindering us because people wanted that personal connection. You're getting married. You want to talk to a real person. That's just how I am. And so I think it helped us until it started hurting us because it kind of drove this like, well, who's running this company?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, really, it was running itself at that point.
Yeah. Running itself, but like not getting the personal touch and like the values that are our core.
Yeah.
And that's like, I think like what we said is we bring this special, unique factor of the customer service and it wasn't really being translated, but it was allowing you to get back to people. So like it was convenient in one way,
right,
but not convenient in like the customer experience.
Yeah. Until we hit that realization of like, oh wow, let's just get another watering can. Let's just get another watering pot. It's just focused.
Exactly. Before we talk about, I guess, where we're at now, because I love where Bella's at now as an organization. I know there were, many times where, we tried something and it didn't necessarily work. Like the automation had some pluses, but it didn't deliver that customer experience that we're so driven to deliver to our clients. So can you talk about a few times where you have been thinking about, hey, how do I fix this? And then it just kind of doesn't work, And I think a lot of people experience this with businesses, right? Of you have to try something new and it doesn't always work.
For sure. Yeah, it goes back to the, touching the kettle, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me, my biggest thing, and I was pushing it for a long time, what I'm going to say? Build your own package, right?
Yeah.
So being a wedding company that can a la carte build your own package. And I built this whole system. We had one of our team members help us at this point to create some videos. It kind of flopped, but then it came back and then it flopped. And at the end of the day, I don't think it works for us.
Mm-hmm.
But to talk about that as a growth, because I can look back now and say, we've tried it. Like, we've tried it. And it works when you have somebody driving it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was the idea of, and I had some moments where, it was rough, it was rough. Go on, pick your videographer, pick what package you want. But there was a lot of confusion. And even to the point of like, they can do self-checkout. I had a couple people actually book that way.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't feel right. Like, you need, like, for a wedding company, you need someone there that can build that package for you. You can't leave it up to the customer. They don't really, they know it, but they don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, so having someone there to guide that of like, hey, let us build this for you. And yes, we offer our packages now, which is like our most popular packages. I think they work great. But having someone there that says, hey, I will customize this for you has proven to be very successful.
Yeah, yeah. And then, I can imagine Vince just dealing with the creative of, trying to edit these wedding videos and making sure that these couples are happy on top of all the JV stuff. How did you handle that, and how do you handle that even now?
A lot of hours in the dark.
Yeah.
In the bat cave.
Yeah.
No, it was tunnel vision. Like, obviously JV was at a point where we would get, projects, and with JV, the turnaround time for specific projects is usually a little quicker than a wedding. A wedding, there's a little more grace, but normally we like to kind of deliver within a certain time span as well. So with that, though, it was like, if I wasn't shooting the weddings, which means I was on site, on the back end doing all the editing, you'd blink and have 10 couples that are in the queue, call it. And within those packages, you would have each, a couple would not just get one video. They'd get almost like 6 to 7 videos in their one. And then times that by 10, that's 70 exported videos, all the time to review. And then we always would take it a step further on how we deliver it with like a personalized website, and then managing the JV stuff. And with the JV, I was always on set. So yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of just like long nights, a lot of burnout. I definitely burnt out. There was times where I was just like, you kind of just feel like a robot at that point where you're just like, I got to get this done. I did reach out and start pulling in people to help take some load off from the wedding side when it comes to editing, where I can get to a point, especially with photography, like we were able to bring in a strong editor and have her manage a lot of that back end for us and take that weight off. But just even getting the content from, if it wasn't us filming it or taking photos, we got to make sure that content's coming to our studio so we can protect that for our client, and then making sure the work's getting done. So yeah, for me, it was a moment where I looked at Johnny. I'm like, I don't know how much longer we could do this. Like, we may have to sink a ship. Like, we may have to play some battleship, shoot the cannon, and see what fires. And obviously, our heart and souls were always in JV, because that's like, that was the building blocks. But because of with Bella, a big reason we stayed in is that, between our age ranges, weddings are word of mouth mainly, and obviously we're seeing some success with ads and stuff. But it's a lot of people people you went to high school with, college with, friends of friends, people you meet at the wedding that maybe be getting married. So we didn't want to lose out on capturing that business. And we did enjoy it. Weddings are fun. It's a celebration of love. It's not your typical client that's like wants all these revisions. A lot of our wedding clients, we send them the video and it's just like, this is amazing. We love this. So like, it's a lot of work up front, but like, there's not a lot of this back and forth, where the JV side, you may get a client that, makes you want to just pull your hair out, because you're going back and forth on things that you maybe didn't agree upon, and now you have to revisit the scope of work, and then I got to get you involved. And I didn't have you at first, so Now I do.
Yeah.
But it's the idea of just, it got to a point where we just had to really just be like, how do we manage both of these without not getting burnt out? I know you'll probably speak on it, but like Johnny was getting sick every other month because he was just putting so much time in.
I don't know how I did it
from being on set. So this guy,
Well, I mean, both of us. I mean, you just might be a little more internal about it. For me, I was probably external. I mean, the amount that I was doing on the front end, you were doing on the back end.
Right. Just like in our own lane.
We were working.
But we weren't really communicating because we also had a space in Michigan that we were working out of. But Johnny would found a way to work from home. And I was in the studio kind of just by myself getting everything done. And it got to a point where we're running these businesses and we're making money. We're obviously still in business, but like there wasn't this
synergy.
It was just kind of like he knew what he had to do. I knew what I had to do. We kind of just did it on our own time, made sure it was done, make sure you have it done, but there wasn't like teamwork and
we were employees to the bosses of JV and Bella. Like that was it. Like we were reactive to what was happening around us,
Yeah.
And getting sick, like that was rough. I mean, but for us, we are not going to let our clients down. We're not going to let our couples down. We're not going to let our teams down. And so what took the hit, I mean, a little bit like our brotherhood became more of just business, for a little bit.
Yeah. It was just not really hanging out outside the office. It was just kind of like, cool, get this done, send it off.
Yeah. Because we were working.
We didn't have, there's only so much time in a day. So a lot of that time was head down, getting it done.
Yep. Failure is not an option.
And then also though, being so buried in the post side of things allowed us to not have bandwidth to take on new clients and address inquiries in a reasonable time frame. Yeah. By the time we reach back to some clients, they've already made a decision. And now it's like, you're going to get something within the next day. Because our time is all freed up.
Right. Yeah. We were stuck in it that we had no forecasting, right. What's next. And I remember a moment when we got so busy. We had it was October. We did this huge cooking show. And then we probably had 10, 12 weddings. By the time it was done, we weren't able to secure any work for JV. And then the weddings were over. So there was 3-4 months in our career where we're like,
yeah,
we got no work, What do we do? Mm-hmm. And so that shifted our mindset.
Yeah.
How can we make this sustainable?
Yeah. So, I mean, when you guys obviously have that desire, you're stressed out, you're saying, oh crap, we just did all this work. And now we're kind of missing out. I mean, I know you guys definitely took that time to reflect and how can you make some improvements. And I know one of those big things you guys have told me about time and time again is, the importance of picking the right person.
100%.
I think you've worked with people, in JV, you've had some people come in, you've had some people come into Bella and try to be that answer, and it just didn't seem like the right fit.
Yeah.
So just tell me a little bit about, that process of picking that right person and why that's important for you guys personally.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I needed to find someone on the front end that was like me. And I'm kind of crazy,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I couldn't find, I tried to find someone, but to have someone that has all this experience and that has this passion as a founder, it's really tough to find. And so, I could tell you a story about when I found that person.
Sure.
So I remember I was, our sister, Gianna, that's blood. I was in my head thinking for a while, Gianna, I would love for you to help. And she was busy and she was doing her own things. And she tried it for a little bit and it wasn't the right time.
Mm-hmm.
God had a plan, wasn't the right time. And I remember I was sitting outside of the UPS store in St. Joe, and I just called her and I said, G, I want you to really think about this. And I think it was the beginning of this year. Because we invested in a new website, we were invested in marketing services, and I remember them looking at us and say, "Make sure that you're prepared, because when we're done, you're going to be really busy." And so I, took that right to my heart, and I said, "All right, we have to be prepared." And so I had this convo with her, and I said, "I think now is the time. Let's have this conversation. Think about it, and let me know how you feel." Mm-hmm. And a couple of days later, she's like, "You guys are my brothers. Let's do this." And so it was from the ground up, and it was trust. Again, for me, another thing I had to peel away from myself and ego was trusting someone to do a job as good as I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, it was tough for me because I wasn't doing it as good as I can do it. I could just only understand it. Yeah. So
I think also like, especially in the wedding industry, I mean, you get married once. Some people more than once.
yeah,
But in the grand scheme of things, that's one of their biggest milestones in life.
yeah,
So when a couple reaches out to give them that care and that excitement and the willingness to be like, hey, Bella's the right company for you because XYZ, it's almost like when we were getting spread thin, it's not that Johnny didn't have it in him, but it was just like a different experience of Johnny. Like Johnny was more like, hey, here's what we offer. Let me know if you're interested or not. With Gianna being on the team.
shout out Gianna if you're watching this.
G-ball. She can speak that language. She's excited.
She loves it.
She loves sales, but she loves connecting with people. And she had really good success doing kind of like a sales kind of social media thing prior to that. So I think that really boosted her confidence and like knowing what works with people. And I think that's been a huge growth factor for her. So it's not like we had to get her up to speed on how it works, but like she just ran with it. And on my end, like I managed a lot of the JV stuff on the socials, but I was also doing Bella. So I'm sitting here, I'll never forget, I was flying to Florida. I bought internet on Southwest just to preload like assets for post,
Yeah.
And I'm just like, this is just not my, like, I'm doing it because I have to. We have no one else to do it. We got no one else to do this.
We were employees.
I mean, I remember this flight attendant looking at me like, and I have all these brides up and I'm like, it's just my job. I'll take a vodka, I'll take a vodka orange juice. And I'm catching a buzz on this plane and I'm putting posts for the next 30 days, just trying to think of captions. I'm like, this just doesn't feel like me,
authentic anymore.
And so like now it's been a really beneficial like change of roles where Gianna and I now, she manages our social media and all the stuff people are seeing, but on the back end, I've been able to use my strengths to give her video assets and photo assets for her to post. But like the engagement, I mean, that's a job in itself. And then now for her to do engagement plus sales has taken a huge load off both of them. I probably got time to laugh and do whatever I want to do outside work. I'm just like, there'll be times where it's 9 o'clock in the night and I'm like, I got to post a couple. I got to do it because everyone says you need to post every day. But it just didn't come natural to me.
Right.
So
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it, the past year, right? The culture that Gianna's brought to Bella, right? Yeah. Or I guess let it come back out, right? Because it was always there. That was the hard part, right? Because we're gonna deliver that amazing experience to any couple, right?
100%.
But it's hard to. How do you sell them on that? How do you get them to understand that's what you're planning on doing without having the time when you don't have the time to sit there and have a discussion and post on social media and do the little things of, at an engagement shoot, send a couple, a glass of champagne, right?
I don't know how she does it.
She gets
card.
it, right? Yeah. She gets it, and it's just an extension of you guys, right? So it's nice, right? Because she's the right person because she is you guys in that, with that care and that passion.
Yeah.
So it's been cool to see. And then talk about a little bit now, like not only has that, helped Bella become a powerhouse, right? And I think that alone in itself is going to take things to new heights. How is that? What are you doing with that extra time? And I know you're not sitting around, hanging out. You're working with JV. So what are you using that extra time now to do with JV?
Build it.
Yeah.
Build it. Enjoy it. Enjoy what we've created. Instead of it being a stressor, it's a successor. I don't know. I'm trying to make something up.
I think it's you got. I mean, you've been able to really build out what you've wanted. Like again, going back to what you said, like you had all these ideas, things you knew you had to do, but now that it's being done on this other half of what you had to do, it's like all this time now to build out internal structuring.
Yeah.
Like I feel like since you guys kind of came together, the amount of stuff, from our pitch decks to our sales decks,
right,
to our, forms for our kind, like we didn't really have it. Like we had some of it, but like to the point where you kind of brought that to the table of like, hey, Johnny and I were going to work on this. And then you would task him with something. Well, normally he'd be, oh, I have a call with the bride. Hopefully I sell. Now it's Gianna's like, hey, we got a new couple, blah, blah, blah. Fills us in the details. Great.
Right.
Meanwhile, Johnny's was able to use that time to build out an internal spreadsheet or process that he loves doing and is good at doing. So I think that the divide and conquer mentality has been huge.
Yeah. And then we just get our updates from Gianna.
Yeah.
Well put, man. You've been watching me, huh?
Yeah, it's
I
been
do.
good.
Yeah.
No, I think it's awesome, right? The things we've been able to do to improve JV, you know, adding a little more structure to it, right? It's hard because you want that balance. You know, my natural thing coming from kind of that corporate America world is to be a little bit more structured. And I think you guys are open to that, but also rein me in a little bit when, you know, you're like, Tim, I'm sorry, no one wants to get 7 surveys, you know, after on set, you know.
Yeah.
Vince is giving me a hard time calling me like, what are you doing sending these surveys out? You know, I'm like, dude, I want to get some feedback, right? I want to know how to improve. So it's been a good balance, right? Of, hey, what can we do to add structure into this organization to not cause extra work for anybody, but so we're able to scale it. So we're able to add, you know, take this kind of culture that we have on set, which I feel like is a big differentiating factor for us, which is we're really excited to talk about that in a future episode.
Oh, yeah.
But how do we bring that to more people, right? How do we make video production fun? You know, how do we do stuff like that? So it's been a blast kind of seeing you guys power through, right? Running 2 businesses, building 2 businesses, and all the stresses and what you've learned from it. Yeah.
I think though, like from what you said of like you trying to implement new things, but like I think me and you have had, you know, like when we talk about struggles of running business. So I think I feel like there was moments early on with me, like just getting up to the same speed of how your background and what you were used to from these bigger companies. And then us just like not knowing and being like, well, like we don't do it like this. And we need to make sure that we're staying true to that. And I think we found a happy balance of, you know, when I can see what you're trying to do big picture and then vice versa. So it's like going back to the survey thing, like for me, it's like, I know you mean well, you want to generally make the experience better for our contractors, clients, and we're just not used to that. So like learning how our brains work, I think that was a huge growth moment for me where now I kind of like it. I like when you are like, we're rolling out this initiative. I'm like, let's do it. But because I know you have intention behind it, you're not doing it to just give people busy work. I mean, I think the way you go about structuring was something we needed.
Yeah. And always wanted.
Yeah. And that was a growing pain and gain because we weren't used to it. But like, that is why we hired you to do that and to kind of like, hey, we need to think of it this way. And I think at the end of the day, it's always for the better to get to the higher level for our business growing and our relationship internally and having that open communication. If something's not going out, I feel like we can be directly open with each other.
Yeah.
And always at the end of the day, we don't leave on a bad note.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Quick game of blitz.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it. No, I think that's great. I think that I know we've said this in the past episodes, but it really hammers home the importance, right, of who you're working with.
Exactly.
And like I said, I've changed a lot and kind of adapted and improved myself from working with you guys. And it's good to hear that, you know, some of the structure that I bring isn't, you know, I know it's not met with resistance. You guys have been super supportive, and I think our networks and partners have been, you know, super supportive. So just taking things to new heights. It's super exciting. That being said, I think that kind of covers, you know, what we want to talk about with some of these challenges of running 2 businesses. And I think hopefully I got some new insights, and everyone out there got some good insights of what that's like and some pain points. Hopefully we can learn from it. But other than that, looking forward to connecting again with you guys soon.
See you on the next one.
Cool. Yeah.